Welcome to the Rise to Intimacy podcast. I'm your host, Valerie McDonald, and for over a decade, I've worked as a sex and couples therapist because intimacy used to feel really overwhelming for me. I felt a lot of pressure to perform, I was disconnected from my body, and I often felt like desire was out of reach for me. But through my own trauma work, I stopped checking out of my body and started feeling connected to it again. I learned what it's like to experience intimacy without fear, without shutting down, and without numbing out. Now I'm on a mission to help you do the same thing. This podcast exists because trauma doesn't get the last word. You can learn how to calm your body, change the story you've been carrying, and rebuild real connection. First with yourself and then with the people you love. Let's begin. Dating today can feel confusing, exhausting, and, let's face it, deeply discouraging. I hear this from my female clients who say something like, I want to meet someone in real life, not on the dating apps, but no one ever approaches me. And when I was dating for several years before entering my current relationship, I also felt that pain. I dreaded the apps. They felt transactional, performative, and really disconnected from how real attraction actually develops. But I also hear men say, I don't know how to approach anymore without being seen as creepy or inappropriate or crossing a line, so I just don't approach women at all. And somehow, both of these experiences are happening at the same time. So today we're going to talk about why modern dating feels so broken, also how AI, not just apps or social media, is reshaping attraction and connection. I'll also talk about how emerging technologies like AI partners could further alter intimacy for better and for worse, and why feminism and a little shout out to the Me Too movement are not actually the problem, but our incomplete education is, and why the real solution still comes back to emotional regulation, consent, and relational skill, which we should be teaching far earlier than when we become adults. So dating didn't suddenly get harder because there are no good people left, contrary to popular belief. It got harder because our relational environment changed way faster than our nervous systems could adapt. And AI is accelerating that gap. And dating apps didn't just introduce convenience. They introduced digitally filtered dating. But what does that mean? Well, you may be surprised to know some of this, maybe not some of the others, but AI now shapes who we see, who we don't see, how our conversations begin, which traits are rewarded, and how long we stay engaged with matches. These systems are optimized for engagement, but not attachment or emotional safety. When we talk about AI and dating, most people are still imagining something that will happen in the distant future. But the truth is, AI is already deeply embedded in modern dating, and it's shaping attraction long before anyone consciously realizes it. AI doesn't just help us date, it quietly structures the environment in which attraction is allowed to emerge. So let me break this down some. When I say AI shapes who we see, I'm talking about how the dating apps no longer show people randomly or chronologically. Instead, AI systems are deciding which profiles surface, which ones are buried, who appears repeatedly, and who disappears after a single interaction. These systems are learning from your behavior, who you swipe on, how long you linger on certain profiles, who messages you, who you respond to, and also who you ignore. And over time, the algorithm builds a predictive model of what it thinks you want and then increasingly narrows your exposure to fit that model. So you're no longer discovering people at your own free will. You're being shown who the system believes will keep you engaged. But this can reinforce existing preferences, limit exposure to different but potentially good matches, and reduce the emotional range of attraction. From a psychological perspective, attraction often grows through novelty, curiosity, and unexpected resonance with another, not just instant preference matching. When AI filters too tightly, it can unintentionally flatten attraction into predictability. So, what I mean by this is that your options are limited due to the algorithm attempting to reduce uncertainty, but instead, it drastically is limiting the people you're exposed to. After a while, attraction just becomes flat because every match may feel fine, but it's not fueled with chemistry or desire that has depth to it. And people start blurring together because the conditions that fuel spark have been filtered out. Then you start noticing that everyone you connect with talks and values the same things. Conversations seem to follow a script, and nothing about the connection activates your curiosity or arousal. AI shapes who we don't see. AI systems are quietly deprioritizing people who don't photograph well, people who are slower to engage, and people who don't match the dominant desirability patterns. And that means these are like the unspoken rules of who is considered dateable or attractive or quote unquote worth engaging with inside this digital dating ecosystem. It also deprioritizes people whose communication style doesn't trigger fast responses. So this doesn't mean those people aren't compatible or emotionally available or even capable of deep connection. It means they are less rewarding to the algorithm. Over time, this creates a dating pool that feels repetitive and has much less emotional diversity, and it gives you a skewed perception of what's actually out there. From a nervous system lens, this matters because safety and attraction are often found in nuance, not in optimization. And let's talk about how AI is shaping how conversations begin. AI now influences opening lines, conversation pacing, tone, humor, and emotional framing. And that is like helping people understand something by connecting it to how it feels and not just how it works. Whether through, suggested prompts that it's giving you, or AI written messages, or learned patterns of what works. The first interactions are becoming increasingly optimized for response, but again, not resonance, not with a feeling of connection with somebody. So conversations might feel clever, but they're shallow, or polished, but they're vague. They might feel engaging, but they're easily replaceable. The nervous system reads this as stimulation, but not attunement. So over time, people may feel mentally engaged, but emotionally disconnected, and maybe being talked to, but not truly seen. Also, curious, but not emotionally steady. This is one reason many people say, I'm talking to people, but it all feels the same. And AI also shapes which traits are rewarded. So AI systems reward what keeps people scrolling and responding. And that tends to favor physical attractiveness, witty or provocative messaging, emotional intensity early on. That's absolutely not great. Confidence that reads well in that digital world. And again, like fast responsiveness. But what it is deprioritizing, and these things are very important for building relationships that are truly deeply connected, it's deprioritizing that slower emotional pacing. Also, emotional regulation and a secure but steady interest. But the paradox is that the traits most rewarded by the algorithms are not always the traits that sustain the long-term connection. So it's distorting our attraction by training us to equate intensity with compatibility and chemistry with safety or confidence with somebody's emotional capacity to build connection. Again, this rewires what we are expecting attraction to feel like, but it's often at odds with how secure attachment actually develops. Now, AI is also shaping how long we stay engaged with matches and just with the app itself. The AI systems are designed around engagement loops. They're learning when you're most likely to open the app, how often they should notify you, when to introduce novelty, and when to pull back to increase anticipation. But this creates a rhythm of connection that is intermittent, dopamine driven, and reward based. So, psychologically, this mirrors something called a variable reward system. That is when rewards happen sometimes and they're unpredictable and they do not occur on a fixed schedule. This is the same mechanism that keeps people going back to the slot machines. So, the unintended cost to relationships in this instance is reduced tolerance for slower emotional development, increased frustration when connection unfolds naturally, and a tendency to move on rather than to stay curious. And from a nervous system perspective, again, this trains people to seek activation, which is like a heightened nervous system state, instead of what we are shooting for, regulation, which occurs when your nervous system feels settled enough to be present in the moment and therefore truly experience what you are desiring. And real intimacy absolutely requires regulation. So none of this makes people shallow or broken or incapable of love. It just means we're trying to build intimacy inside systems that were designed for engagement and retention and monetization instead of emotional safety, mutual regulation, and long-term bonding. But AI didn't invent these problems, it just amplified them. Being aware of all this is the first step, and reclaiming your ability to choose a partner intentionally instead of succumbing to the influence of how you're being conditioned by an algorithm to choose your partner. So, research on choice overload consistently shows that when options increase beyond a manageable threshold, satisfaction decreases, even when objectively better options are available. So the thing to think about here if you're single is that you may feel less certain or less grounded or less emotionally invested, even when someone is genuinely compatible. AI is also now involved in profile photo enhancement, message drafting, and conversation pacing. This creates what researchers describe as mediated authenticity, where first impressions are partially co-created by machines. So the risk is not deception here, but it is misalignment, because someone may feel witty online, but flat in person, or emotionally expressive in the digital world, but avoidant when you meet them in real life. And also, they can appear confident through these prompts, but unsure without them, and therefore conversation is highly lacking. If you're single and in the dating world, what you should be concerned about here is that trust becomes harder to build when it's unclear which parts of connection are organic and which are optimized. So this brings us to something that is much closer than people realize, which is AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends, and emotionally responsive chat companions. These systems are already designed to mirror emotional validation. They are available 24/7. They are never rejecting of you. They're highly responsive. And, of course, they are adapted to the user's preferences. There are some potential benefits, and just hold tight with me here. For some people, AI companions may reduce acute loneliness and also provide a space to rehearse emotional conversations or communication, even though I might be stretching that a little too far. But they could offer a sense of companionship during transitional periods, like a breakup or something, or a loss of a partner. And they are going to probably feel safer than this unpredictable human interaction that we're used to. So those benefits do matter in certain situations, especially when our culture is rising with isolation. But of course, there are, in my opinion, more relational trade-offs, okay? So some of the risks are there's no mutual nervous system regulation. Of course, this is one of the most important ones for me because I think this is most important for all humans to learn is regulating our nervous systems. But AI cannot co-regulate. So it might mirror, but it does not respond from its own embodied experience. And what I mean by this is that takes away the ability to practice self-regulation, which is very important. So this is for yourself, learning how to calm your nervous system in the face of distress or discomfort. And it also cannot co-regulate, which is the process through which our nervous systems learn safety and flexibility and trust with another human. It also has no tolerance for frustration or repair. Human intimacy requires the ability to navigate a rupture in the relationship and also to repair that rupture. However, AI just removes the rupture completely. There's not going to be a rupture, and therefore it removes a lot of growth that is important to learn to have a deeply intimate relationship with another person. Also, there is reinforcement of avoidance with an AI companion because when emotional needs are met without vulnerability, people lose the tolerance for real-world complexity. We must learn how to be vulnerable with another human if we want to have a deeply intimate relationship with them, but that is just not possible with an AI companion. So the concern here is that comfort without challenge can slowly reduce the capacity for real connection, even while easing loneliness in the short term. So to sum all of this up, when connection is filtered through metrics such as response time, match rate, engagement signals, people begin to unconsciously score intimacy, which shifts dating from being relational to driven by metrics, from being curious to performative, and from being a felt experience to being something that's measured. So you may find yourself analyzing connection instead of actually experiencing it. So what can singles practice today in this AI-mediated world? Well, we got to first remember that AI isn't the enemy, but the unconscious use of it is pretty costly. We should figure out how to reclaim our agency, slow down, choose depth over the speed that someone might be pushing you into. Let your discomfort inform you instead of avoiding discomfort. Instead of thinking, how fast did they text me back? How many hours has it been? Or how many matches do I have? Think about, do I feel curious about this person I match with? Do they feel safe? Do I feel more myself after interacting with them? Again, authentic attraction requires vulnerability, regulation, and mutuality, and these cannot be automated. So going back to women who are wanting real-life connection, but men who are not comfortable approaching, men didn't just stop approaching because women became empowered with feminism. They stopped because no one taught them how to approach with safety and consent or regulation. And women didn't stop wanting deep connection with a good man. They stopped feeling safe initiating without social consequences. And this isn't feminism failing. It's our collective culture failing to teach our children the relational and nervous system skills required to handle discomfort, express desire safely, and honor boundaries, including consent. Attraction is not about dominance or confidence. It's about nervous system openness. When people feel hyper self-conscious or afraid of taking a misstep or unsure of the social rules, their bodies constrict, and dating will feel stiff, but not because people don't care anymore, but because they don't feel safe enough to risk caring. And the dating crisis didn't start with AI. But AI did expose what we have never been teaching, which is that consent is not about sex. It's about autonomy. It's about respect and emotional safety. We need to teach it early. We need to teach it to all genders. We need to teach desire without shame. And we need to teach regulation instead of control. And we don't need to go backwards. We need to go deeper because dating improves when emotional regulation is taught, consent is relational, curiosity replaces performance, and safety becomes the foundation, not just chemistry alone. So if dating is feeling hard for you right now, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you or that there's no good matches left. It just means you're human, navigating systems that evolved faster than any of us were prepared for. But the solution isn't fear or isolation or avoidance. It's education, it's skill building, and it is the desire and the willingness to face some discomfort in order to find a meaningful partner. So if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone navigating dating or someone raising humans who will one day be navigating the dating world. Thanks for listening to the Rise to Intimacy podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, know that healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a rating and review for us at ratethispodcast.com/rise. It really helps others find us, and I'm so grateful for all your support. You can learn more about my coaching packages for individuals and couples at risetointimacy.com. And remember, sex therapy isn't for people who are broken. It's for people brave enough to look beneath the surface.